Hello there, welcome back to the Random Show episode number 45 with your host, AgostinhoZinga. This is the Random Show episode number 45, coming at you live and direct. I'm actually going to start this a bit sooner than I intended to start. I meant to start at 2:15. I'm actually starting it before 2:15 because I want to be on time for once, and I'm actually early. So I've got that ticked off the list. Or anyone that was saying, "Oh, you can't come early, you're always late," stick that up your absolute cofter, mate. Here I am, nice and early. I should get a pat on the back for it. I should get a medal. I should get a sticker. Hopefully it's all on my way to my PO box. Everyone that was doubting me, I hope you are sending those treats and those gifts and those rewards to me in order for me to have the positive affirmation that I need to keep on doing what I'm doing now, because I'm a big baby. But anyway, thanks again for tuning into the Random Show. It's episode number 45. We have many things to talk about. As you saw in the show title, we've got all those things we're talking about, plus some more. So if you're on, a regular viewer of the Random Show, then what I should let you know ahead of time is that, guess what? It's kind of random. I'm going to be all over the place with topics. I'm going to be talking about things that you probably have never heard me speak about on my channel, because I like to save them all on here. And I like to kind of differentiate a little bit from my podcast and from my Patreon. I've got too many things going on at the same time. And obviously my flipping DJing stuff going on. I kind of need to segment it and make it a bit cleaner. But for the time being, we'll have it all on the one channel. We're going to split the shows so that you guys can know when I'm doing what, etc., etc., etc. So big up everybody that's joining in. I really do appreciate you. Got the first question ready down the day on the screen, courtesy of Lee66, that said, "Did I go to Carnival?" No, I did not go to Carnival this year. This is the 1 year I did not go to Carnival. Not, to be fair though, if I remember correctly, pre-pandemic, I don't think I went to Carnival for I don't think I went in I'm pretty sure I didn't go in 2018, and I'm pretty sure I didn't go in 2017. So I missed 2 years of Carnival plus this year. Just because, I just couldn't be bothered. There's no real big reason. I'm a big fan of Carnival. I actually like it because, as most of you guys would know if you're from here, the UK isn't really big fans of fun. We don't really have a lot of those kind of street festival parade type things. And if we do have them, they're really heavily regulated. There's usually a heavy police presence, and you usually can't really have the fun that you want to have in those sort of situations. So the fact that they let people do what the F they want at Carnival is quite refreshing. The fact that it's the fact that it's a carnival that is basically specifically directed and promoted to black people, and especially Caribbean people, is quite nice, because it's music I don't really it's music I don't usually hear day to day. I think a lot of people are the same. So you get to hear unabashed, bashment music, reggae music, soca, whatever that comes from those islands over there, and you get to hear it super loud on great sound systems. And yeah, I just love it all. I really love it all. So I'm a big fan of it. And again, the food, because Caribbean food here in the UK is a little bit hit and miss. I think maybe most places are like that. Sometimes the service is bad, sometimes the quality stands all over the place. But I feel like Notting Hill Carnival is usually a really awesome celebration and an opportunity for you to get some of the best Caribbean food London has to offer, because everyone goes there to basically show off how good they can cook. And you have all these competing stalls basically wanting to get your money for the same type of food, right? Rice and beans and some chicken. So they're going to have to compete at a really high level to make sure that they can get your £5 to £10 whatever for that box of food. So I really love going for the food alone, but unfortunately the way back home is just horrible. It's in West London, so it's already far from me because I live in East, and I live in, I'm really East, so I've got to go to really West to go there. And then plus they have this thing where, I guess in order to kind of help with crowd control, they have a particular route that they kind of shepherd everybody into in terms of going back home. And it's a really long, laborious route that basically makes you go around in a circle and then come back to the place that you were. So it's a real ball ache to go to. Honestly, it's a real ball ache to go to. And then of course, as Lee mentioned, there was a murder there, which is really tragic. I read about that the other day. I think the kid was a rapper. He had a baby on the way. People, paying tributes to him and stuff. I have no idea what happened or how it occurred, but there's always trouble as well because it's hot. People are drunk. People are high. People are just, loads of people from all the parts of London come down there. So you can just imagine what type of passa can, transpire when people from all different parts of London who maybe are in gangs or whatnot congregate in one place. That can happen. But I also don't like the negative stereotypes that kind of get painted around Carnival, because I feel like trouble is something that follows any kind of social gathering in the UK, whether it's Wimbledon, whether it's a football game, whether it's a predominantly white festival, a predominantly black festival, anywhere where Brits and English people gather to drink and to do drugs and to be merry, usually follows some sort of violence. I think it's just in our DNA. It's just part of who we are. You look back to the times of flipping Henry VIII and shit. Do you know what I mean? People were fighting for less back then over a bit of bread and whatnot. So nowadays, I think it just continues the same thing. And I think, especially considering how, how kind of stuck in the ages the government are in terms of public access to stuff and parks and people being allowed to do like open fun stuff. It's just, there's a lot of stifling of people's fun and expression. So when you get an opportunity to go out and have a bit of fun, people do get a bit crazy. I'm not going to deny that. And I know myself included, I'm the same. I'm not, exempt from this. I know when I go out and I go and I have some fun here in London and, you're given a bit of a free rein, you do tend to kind of go a bit OD. The great thing I have with me is that I've had the education, because I've been able, have had the privilege to be able to go to other parts of Europe and party in different places where they take partying very seriously, like Berlin being a good example. They're like professional partiers, so they know how to pace themselves. They don't treat every night like it's flipping like a Project X movie or something. Do you know what I mean? So that has allowed me to sort of like temper the way that I go out and whatnot. And maybe just like sets and reps, being able to go out more often has obviously made me a little bit better in terms of how I behave, but you can't say that for everybody. So all those in one made for a little bit of a shitty thing. So yeah, it was sad to hear that news about that kid getting stabbed, man. It really, really was. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. What's this? Robert Henry Poet said, the man is back with the random facts. You know how we do it. You know how we do it. But yeah, but apart from that, it's usually a good time, honestly. Like, I can remember the first times I went to Carnival when I was super young and I wasn't really allowed to go out. So that'll be the only time you could go to a kind of quote unquote party, because it ended at like 9 or 10 p.m. I think Carnival ends. So if you do rush back home, even though you can't really rush back home because the police make you go back a certain way, you can still get home before 12. So if you weren't allowed out, you could go have drinks, you could go get high, you can go party, and you could also have the opportunity, especially if you were ugly and you had no game, you can have the opportunity to flipping catch a quick wine with some super attractive girls. I mean, you get a chance to have some massive bum, shake in front of you, you get a little boner, and then you go home super happy with a smile on your face. So it really was a good time to go. But, thinking back on it, maybe those formative years when you're young, it's a bit better to go to than when you're super old and I can't imagine going there now and, accidentally having to catch a wine off a flopping 18-year-old or something. That would be long. So I'm happy that that's not my reality. I'm happy that is not my reality. Anyway, enough about Carnival. We've got loads of things to jump on and talk about. Big up everybody's in the chat. Big up Ryan Savage. Big up everybody that's here. We're going to go right into it because I've got some interesting things I want to talk about that I think are somewhat interesting. And I also don't want to take up too much of your time. As per usual, the beer donation fund is still running, so if you want to sponsor my ability to drink loads of alcohol this weekend, then feel free to do so. The link to donate is in the chat, I think at the top of the chat. If you just want to support the show by liking it, then you can. If you do want to like it, if you want to unlike it, you can do that too. If you want to subscribe, you can do that as well. And if you want to join, you can do that also. But if you don't want to do any of that, you just want to see my face chat shit, then feel free to do so. I'm on the green juice today. I'm going to be back on the beers tomorrow, but I'm on the green juice for tonight. As you can see here, I've got one green juice and then I've got a second one that I haven't finished yet there. So I'm going to be doing that. So grab yourself a drink or a snack, whatever you want to be munching on. Sit back and relax and let's start off with the show. But first things first, let me take a sip. So I'm going to mute the mic so you guys don't hear me slurping. Lovely. What's in the green juice, says Ryan Savage. In the green juice there is kale, spinach, pear, a bit of kale, a bit of spinach, one pear, ginger, lemon, and that's it basically. And I just mashed it up in the fucking what have I got? I got a NutriBullet, and then I squeezed the pulp through a sieve to get the juice extracts out of it, and then this is what I'm drinking basically. And I usually alternate. Sometimes I'll drink it with pulp, and then I'll drink it juiced. to kind of to make sure that I'm getting all the right fibers and stuff from all the leftover pulp. 'Cause sometimes I think when I throw the pulp, I'm thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure all the nutrients for the juice are actually in that pulp that I'm throwing away. So I like to kind of have it, mixed in about. Um, People saying the green juice have a very no vodka in a green juice. I wish I did have vodka actually. I would have actually slipped that in there. No vodka, just pure green juice. Anyway, let's run on into it. Let's jump on in. First things first. So, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but flipping Kanye West, my absolute idol, my king, my North Star, the guy that I absolutely adore and love, has been going on an absolute tangent over the last couple of days, isn't it? And it feels like the main thing that he's been complaining about has been his kind of butting of heads with some of the people higher up at Gap. Because as you guys know, he's got that whole Yeezy Gap collection that he's doing, engineered by Balenciaga, where his mission is to basically is to basically bring high quality basics to the wider population, right? He wants to be able to dress people in clothes that he thinks are quote unquote luxurious, but at a somewhat affordable price point. So he's obviously wants to do that, and there's no better partner to do something like that than Gap. And Gap is a high street brand that he's always been infatuated with. I think if you listened to Kanye from before, then you know that he's always ranted and raved about wanting to be the creative director of Gap, and he was given a really, really great opportunity to basically do what he wanted to do at Gap. And so far the clothes have been a real success. They've sold out all the time. Everyone that's worn them has spoken how highly of the quality. I watched some reviews of people who bought them online and they really liked them, blah 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 blah. But I guess in recent months or weeks he's had some issues with people in the executive board of Gap, or people involved in decision making of Gap, in terms of how they're rolling out the product, what products available, whether they do fashion shows. It was like a really funny viral clip that went somewhat viral online, where he's basically shouting at all these white people about how terrible they are at their jobs and why they should listen to him in terms of getting Gap where it should be, blah blah blah. Anyway, I guess that whole conversation didn't go well or something, or maybe he's just he's a bit tender about the whole thing. But I do have a fear in it, because I think this whole thing kind of ties into it. So off the back of that, he then went on his Instagram and started to post all these mad posts about stuff. The first one being this post that he highlighted, where he accused a company called Los Angeles Apparel of essentially selling unreleased Yeezy products, stuff that hasn't been maybe released to the public, or things that are in development, blah blah blah. If I'm not mistaken, Los Angeles Apparel might be it might be the company from the founder of American Apparel. I'm pretty sure that's what the company is, because I'm sure they make blanks, and maybe that's who Kanye had basically partnered up with. I'm not really too sure, but anyway, that's the vibe, right? So he complained about that. Then out of nowhere, so he's complaining with Gap about how they're rolling out the products, and he's not happy of what they're doing, and he's shouting at the executive board. Then out of nowhere, this Instagram caption comes out where he says the following: "My kids go into Donda. They're not going to Sierra Canyon. Charlemagne the God and Chris, get your motherfucking popcorn." So essentially, if you're not familiar with Kanye speak, he is talking about Donda being his school that he's basically trying to set up. And I think the picture here basically relates to it, right? This is the first session, I guess, the Dove's first day at Donda, right? So basically he wants to have his own version of school where he teaches kids, I guess, practical skills or whatnot. I don't know, how to beat match, who fucking knows? But essentially he's not happy with his kids going to a very popular private school out there in LA called Sierra Canyon. And then I guess mentioning Charlemagne the God, because he knows he's somebody that maybe doesn't like the things that he says, and someone very prominent in the media, and obviously Chris being Kris Jenner. So this really, if you think about it, has nothing to do with what's his argument with Gap, right? This is a completely different conversation. I'm not sure why he's talking about his kids, but I was thinking to myself today that maybe the reason why Kanye is doing this and flipping out, from arguing with the people at Gap about how they're releasing his Yeezy Gap Balenciaga collection, to suddenly now attacking the mother of his children, attacking Kris Jenner, going after anybody else he wants to go after. I think the reason why this has happened is because Kanye can't handle it when people say no to him. Like, he clearly doesn't like people saying no. But I think in general, his reaction to this sort of stuff is proof that he doesn't really have enough people around him who do push back in the way that an executive would. Because an executive that works for Gap, right? Imagine you're a middle road. What's the thing called? Your middle management executive, or your high level executive over at Gap. You're on the Gap board. You do business a certain way. It's not innovative. It's not interesting. It's not thought provoking. It doesn't move the needle in any way, shape, or form. But you always get your bonus at the end of the year. You always get paid at the end of the month, or at the end of the month. You have a good company card. The perks are pretty decent, and the machine just keeps rolling on. Now this Kanye West guy comes up and he wants you to blow up the entire thing. He wants you to put clothes, as someone says, in bin bags and a shop floor. He wants you to do fashion shows. He wants you to do TV commercials. He wants you to put more money into the company that you've ever seen put into the company, and potentially risk taking away your ability to go on a skiing holiday or to put your kids through private school. So of course, if you're an executive, you're probably not going to respond too well to this guy who you don't really know, because you're a fucking 70-year-old white dude telling you how to do your job. So you're going to say no and you're going to push back. But Kanye being Kanye, he hasn't really heard people ever push back at him. So I think this reaction he's having is just because he's heard people say no. Someone told him no, or someone gave him, someone gave him the, maybe we'll see. Let's kind of circle back. You know, those kind of business terms. Let's circle back on this. Let's touch bases next week. All those kind of terms which you're basically saying no. And he doesn't know how to compute, he doesn't know how to process the fact that people are not basically bending over backwards to work with him. And like I mentioned, I think earlier on my Twitter, that it's really interesting that, hey, Jess Fury, big up Jess Fury in the chat. It's really interesting, I think I mentioned on my Twitter, that whenever Kanye goes off on these really kind of unhinged rants that he does, right, where he attacks everybody, it's really interesting how no one within his friendship circle who are so quick, the same people who are so quick to post pictures of themselves at, Kanye's album listening party, or when he's putting together a collection of Yeezys showing themselves behind the scenes, or when they get new stuff sent ahead of time, blah, 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 blah. All those same people who are really quick to kind of show off to the world that they're friends to Kanye, they are incredibly silent, like crickets, whenever he goes on these rants where he attacks his family, attacks other friends and businesses. Like, they don't say a word. They're nowhere to be seen, which goes to show, that's basically how the industry is, right? It's all a clout game. They love him for the clout when things are going right and positive and he looks good. But when he kind of looks quote unquote bad, or when it's not good for business, they're suddenly nowhere to be found. But anyway, what can we do? The other tweets are really, really funny anyway. So I find it funny in general, but I just also find it a bit sad because he clearly doesn't have any real people around him, to be honest. But hey, what can you do? I guess that's maybe the price you have to pay for being such an uber genius, right? You don't really have real friends because there's essentially everyone around you needs to extract something from you because you're such an uber genius. So whatever. Then we get this other screenshot where you can see a bubble just above that's been cut off a little bit that says, we can make out, that says, "Can you please stop?" And we have to assume that's probably Kim, right? Because from the other exchanges we've seen of them together over texts, she tends to not write that much to him. And usually the texts that she does write to him contains the word stop, can you chill, relax, call me, all those kind of things. So I would assume it's Kim. And then Kanye replies back, "No, we need to talk in person. You don't have say so of where the kids go to school." Why you get say? Because you half white? Honestly, the fact that Kanye is attacking and somewhat bullying the mother of his children online for all of us to see, off the back of him having an argument with people at Gap head office, is incredibly funny to me. I find it so funny. There's nothing that correlates this whatsoever. Kim and the kids have done nothing, right? They've not affected Gap in the slightest, right? But he has somehow decided to get the fucking AK-47 out and absolutely spray everyone with bullets. Everyone's getting it today. Everyone. But yeah, like the we need to talk in person, like, cause you half white, why you get say, like, this guy is legitimately funny, right? And then he posts this other picture. Now, I don't know who this is because this looks very face tuned. Is this meant to be Kim? I guess this is Kim, right? But I don't know who it is. Maybe it's somebody else. But he posts a picture of this white lady, and then the caption says, "Don't let Chris make you do Playboy like she made Kylie, I guess is meant to say, and Kim do. Hollywood is a giant brothel," he's saying, right? Hollywood is a giant brothel. You hear this guy saying? Hollywood is a giant brothel. Pornography destroyed my family. I deal with the addiction. Instagram promotes it. Not gonna let it happen to Northie and Chicago. Absolutely crazy. Pornography destroyed my family is absolutely hilarious because I think in the last few weeks or stuff, I've seen way more people on social media random people who I don't know and don't follow, essentially sharing their experiences of how beneficial it's been to quit porn, right? To quit watching porn, to stop masturbating and stuff. Like loads of people have been doing that really funny before after picture thing where one side looks really down and distraught and hollowed eyes and cheeks all weird, and look like they've been drinking for 70 million years, and the other person looks really bright, optimistic, and ready to attack the world. But if you read the comments, a lot of guys are saying that porn legitimately is a real addiction for some people, and it can be really destructive. I've never really found that issue, to be honest, because I've never really, porn's just been always a means to an end, right? It's always been kind of a means to an end to kind of get myself off and stuff. I've never really been that tied up in it in terms of downloading porn or knowing porn stars' names or going to conventions. I don't know. It's never really been that deep for me. If I can't find it free on like a website or on Reddit, I just keep it moving. It's not that big of a deal. But I guess for some people it is. But to say that porn destroyed his family is absolutely insane. As if like he's now ascribing, he's now basically indirectly calling Kim a porn star, and he's also calling Kylie or whoever Kyle is a porn star too, which is absolutely wild if you think about it. Ridiculously wild, right? But anyway, and the caption of this, I don't know who this person is, but hey, some lady. Then there's another post here from some person called Monica, who's clearly trying to suck Kanye's dick, who's saying, thank you. I want to stop doing OnlyFans and do consultation for fashion full time or something. Whoever this person is just begging it. But again, Kanye must have a lot of these people in his orbit. Then he posts this. This is really funny. Syria Canyon, Gap, Adidas. It's up. Hillary and Mark blocking me. I don't know who Mark is. Hillary is obviously Hillary Clinton. I don't know who Mark is meant to be. Then we continue. Another post here. Again, it's kind of this is just all in recent time. This is really funny. He says, God loves us, right? Yeah, this is God loves us. And if I'm not mistaken, this has to be Kris Jenner, right? How old, let's check this. How old is Kris Jenner? Yeah, it is Kris Jenner. Okay, cool. It has to be. I was thinking, who is this person? So it's Kris Jenner, right? This lady, right? So, in the screenshot, it says the following. This is fucking hilarious. From my mum, please. So we can obviously assume this is definitely Kim again. It says, please tell him to stop mentioning my name. I'm almost 67 years old and I don't always feel great, and this stresses me to no end. Only an LA mum or only an LA person, right? An LA person who's that age would, like, yeah, sorry, let me rewind again. Only someone from LA would phrase something in this way. Imagine being 66 years old, but when you're talking about yourself, you say, I'm almost 67. It's like when a kid is like, oh, I'm like 3/4 of the way to 18 or something. Those kind of like really ditzy, bimbo-y type things to say. I'm almost 67. No, you're either 66 or you're 67. Who says that? Like a grown-up. Who says I'm almost 67? It's such I know I'm nitpicking, but it's such a specific thing that maybe makes you think, okay, these people are definitely from LA. They definitely live in a bubble, and they definitely are not, are in nowhere self-aware of the world around them at all whatsoever. Anyway, and then Kanye replies back to Kim telling him Kim telling him that his mum is telling him to chill, that her mum's telling him to chill. He says, y'all don't have a say-so over my black children and where they go to school. Right? They will not do Playboy and sex tapes. Tell your Clinton friends to come get me. I'm here. Absolutely insane. The funny thing about this is that from this text message, I get the feeling, in the same way some of these stand-up comedians love to go on the road because essentially they hate their family and they want to live like this kind of a Peter Pan life where they basically never get to grow up. So the best way to do it is to kind of go on the road and pretend that you're doing it for your family to put food on the table, but essentially you don't like your wife and you hate your kids or your partner, whatever it may be. I think this is a clear indication that Kanye 100%, aside from the sexual attraction he might have felt for Kim at one point, he legitimately hates that woman and her family. Like, he hates them to his core. He hates them. And for me, being a Kanye fan, one of the things that I never really liked about them together was that Kanye, made it seem like she was the devil. But he willingly and actively sort her out. Like, he was after, like, if you believe the rumors and what he says himself, he fancied Kim for a long time. He was in love with her for ages before they were even like together, right? He was really in love with her when they were with other people and whatnot, and he was kind of secretly hoping that they could end up getting together, and they did. And they stayed together for a long time, and he ended up, popping out four kids. And I always thought it was really unfair that he loved her, but he didn't like how she was, wanting to change her. It didn't work. And then now he tries to make it seem as if she's the worst thing that ever happened to his life. And it's like, that's not necessarily too fair, I don't think, in that regard. Like, a lot of people at the time, before he did hook up with her, were telling him not to do it. He didn't listen. He did it anyway because he's Kanye West. He does what he wants. Then it doesn't work out. And now he's trying to say the same things that the crowd the people that were watching from afar were saying derogatory to her. Like, I don't really like it, personally. For me, I think it's really in bad taste, especially with her being the mother of his children. But like I said, from these texts alone, I get the feeling that they're not, there is no co-parenting going on there. The security guard drops off the kids. That's it. There is no love there at all in the slightest. There's no way of them getting back together. I don't see it in any way, shape, or form, because they're clearly at completely different points in their life and understanding and whatnot. But yeah, Kanye fucking hates Kim Kardashian, and he also hates Kris Jenner. That much is true from what we're seeing here via these screenshots of these text messages. Then this next one is really fucking funny. This is Kanye uploading the following. He's zoomed in here. It says Tristan, Trav, and Scott. Sorry, Tristan. I'm assuming that's Tristan, who's married, who's with Khloe Kardashian. Travis Scott being Travis Scott with Kylie, and I'm guessing Scott is Scott Disick. I'm assuming the other dude, right? I see a super chat here from Good Robot. Is it just coming through? Yeah, it's just coming through now. What's good, man? What's good to you too, Good Robot, man? I appreciate the $5 super chat, brother. Big up. So Kanye posts Tristan, Trav, Scott, and then he says, calling my fellow cum donors, we in this together. So essentially, in a roundabout way, he's basically saying that they're not actually fathers. They're not actually participating parents. They're essentially people who the Kardashian women decided they were going to breed with because they'll give them mixed race kids or attractive kids or kids with money. And that's it. They don't get any say so in how the kids are raised, where they go to school, blah, 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 blah. And then he posts a screenshot of him searching for cum donors. I love the fact that it says showing results for cum donors instead of cum donors. You know what I mean? Like, Kanye can't even spell donor properly. That's absolutely hilarious. And then the last one here to go on before we move on to the comedy stuff is Kanye posting this. This is new. I haven't read this. So this is a caption. It says the following: "You're not going to keep discriminating on me while the organizations use us all." So again, like I said, this has all been spurned off the back of him having a falling out with the people at Gap. He fell out with people at Gap because of whatever, and now he's attacking his whole family. And the quote here on the caption says as follows: "Anybody that says I'm spiraling when I express my undeniable truth is a sheep. Shut the fuck up and worry about your own kids." Wow, this is Kanye talking, okay? "I obviously am dealing with wars that are the highest level of control and discrimination based on the level of I'm operating at. A conductor gotta turn their back to the audience who direct the orchestra. Oh, yay crazy is basic as fuck at this point. I'm simply right. I know girls who sell pussy that don't agree with how my daughters are displayed." Wow. Okay. Jesus Christ. Honestly, this is a fucking hilarious. I love to see this in real time. Also, I love to see this in real time because from again, me as an outside perspective looking in, the Kardashians do kind of carry themselves in some way like their shit don't stink, right? They're trying to act a bit like high and mighty, like they're above us common folk. But I do love the fact that the majority of the Kardashian women are basically, unmarried with baby daddies and have this real ratchet drama that surrounds them entirely when it comes to their relationship. It's not very sophisticated. It's not very suave. It's not very chic. It's just trailer trashy type stuff, innit? But they just wear really nice clothes and they look amazing. But that's it. It's no different to anything else you might see on some horrible TV show somewhere. So yeah, Kanye, I love that he's blowing this all up and making this all bait. Obviously for his family, it's not the greatest thing, but again, who gives a fuck? It's just funny to watch this stuff in real time. It's funny to watch this stuff in real time. What's people saying in the chat? They're saying here, would you smash Kim, bruv? Of course, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't smash Kim? But that's not the issue at hand in it here. The issue at hand here is that Kanye's basically showing you that smashing Kim isn't what it's all cracked up to be, because that entire family is like, you don't get to be as rich as they are, successful as they are, and just kind of being like easygoing, take every day as it comes, la-di-da type people. You be that way by being absolutely ruthless, savage people behind the scenes who do just about anything and everything to maintain your sense of power, notoriety, fame, money, whatever it may be. And I think Kanye saw the darkness when he went there. He thought he could handle it, being the big bad Kanye West, and that whole entire family chewed him up and spat him back out with little to no regard. Do you know what I mean? Like, really little to no regard. But hey, what can you do? What can you do? Moving on from that, let's talk about this. I thought this was absolutely hilarious and interesting. Let me take that back. I thought this was somewhat sad. Let's say it's sad. Yeah, I won't say it's hilarious and interesting because I don't like to take pleasure in anyone's demise or misfortune, because I think that's a bit lame. But in general, I think some of you guys would have remembered a while back on my random show, maybe not a while, but maybe a couple of episodes ago, maybe 43, I mentioned, or I featured a clip that was shared on the Fire and the Kids subreddit of Brendan admitting on the King and the Sting, or one of the shows, that he was going to go back on JRE. But not only just him going back on there, it was going to be a fight companion, right? The legendary fight companions that they used to do, where they would all sit down and watch UFC in the background and basically talk shit, eat loads of cheese, drink loads of wine, smoke weed, and just get really silly. And it was really, really fun, right? Really, really fun show to watch. Remember, even for me, especially being a casual UFC fan, it was always good to have those guys on in the background whilst I was watching the actual fight myself at home. And then, of course, over time, things kind of changed. Joe Rogan decided to move. And then at the same time, Brian Callen got cancelled. Brendan was going through what he was going through. And then I guess Joe just didn't want that smoke, or didn't want anything to kind of disrupt maybe his Spotify deal. Who knows? And he kind of put that whole show on pause, or he just basically said he wasn't going to do it anymore because obviously he's going to move away and people couldn't come visit him too often, because the Fight Companion show was quite regular. It was on regularly because the fight cards are on regularly too. And that all changed. And of course, Brendan took it over with the permission of Joe and started doing his own Calabasas Fight Companion thing, which isn't, anywhere near as good as the original one. Because the original one, wasn't because of the show quality or the production levels. It was mostly because of the people that are featured on it, right? Eddie Bravo, Brian Callen, Brendan Schaub, Joe Rogan kind of were really good in terms of their chemistry and how they got along on the show. So that was all well and good. Well, unfortunately, we're now approaching with, I think the day that they were meant to, the Fight Companion is meant to be tomorrow, because I'm sure there's a card coming up, right? And we've heard no confirmation from Joe Rogan this is actually happening. So it might be the case that maybe Brendan Schaub, in his haste to announce it, because he wanted to display, because I think he announced it quickly in the way that he did, because he wanted to prove to people that he was still really close to really close to Joe Rogan. Because if you guys remember clearly, in the last time he was there was a lot of kind of miscommunication. It felt like they hadn't seen each other in months. It felt like they haven't spoken to each other properly in a long time. It was very awkward. It didn't really flow as well as it did in the past. So it just felt a little bit clunky. So I felt like Brendan went out of his way to say he was going to be on JRE because he went to prove to everybody and maybe to himself that he's still friends with this guy and they're still cool, and just to kind of flex in it because, he's essentially Joe Rogan's resident flipping cock holster, and he was really happy when he kind of, was really chuffed when he basically said it himself. And I'll actually play the clip here just to kind of quickly remind you on what Brendan said when he was last on the King and the Sting in terms of his appearance on JRE Fight Companion.
And then the original Fight Command's coming back. Will be on Rogan September 3rd. Rogan, Eddie, Callen, me.
Y'all are doing it here?
No, we're going.
Let's go back in.
And then the original Fight Command's coming back. Will be on Rogan September 3rd. Rogan, Eddie, Callen, me.
Y'all are doing it here?
No, we're all going to Austin.
Wow. That's going to be fun. Eddie's going to be in it?
Mm-hmm.
He just sent me a video.
Look how chuffed he was, right? He was so over the moon. I've never seen Brendan smile like that ever in the history of time, whether it's at the end of his comedy special, whether it's him talking about his kids, talking about his partner, talking about his extended family, talking about his own podcast. He never smiles like that when it does anything to do with him. But when it comes to Joe Rogan, he absolutely loves that guy. So clearly he was happy that it was going to happen. But so far we've had no actual word, or we've seen nothing that it was actually going to occur. And I'm recording this now on the 2nd of September. And so far we've heard absolutely nothing. Now, some people are speculating that maybe Brendan Schaub let the cat out of the bag too soon, because Joe Rogan usually likes to keep his stuff secret. He doesn't like to announce guests ahead of time, even though we've got sites like this that essentially give us a, let me show, so sorry, even though we've got sites like this that give you a brief sort of like overview. I think it's called it's called Jerry Library. It can give you a brief kind of an idea on who's to come up. It says here we may so it's not affiliated with Joe Rogan at all, but these guys are basically Joe Rogan fanboys also, and they kind of pay attention to the podcast. So anytime Joe Rogan maybe lets slip that someone's going to be on, or sometimes a guest might let it slip themselves and announce it on social media, they're usually updated on here. And so far, in terms of the page where it says up and coming guests, we have nothing on here that features anything to do with the Fight Companion. The only thing that we do have on here, if you actually do pay attention, is Eddie Bravo. And if I'm not mistaken, I did check Eddie Bravo's social recently, and he did post a story of him being in a Joe Rogan podcast studio. So Eddie Bravo was there filming his own episode of Joe Rogan, but the Fight Companion that they were meant to do is not going to happen. And if you look above Eddie Bravo's name, you see Ari Shafir, Shane Gillis, and Mark Norman, who, they do this show called Protect Our Parks, right? Which is a really funny show where they will basically get blasted and kind of try and fall around. And this show essentially took over, I feel like, Fight Companion, because these are kind of like Joe Rogan's new kind of favorite, comedians that he's sort of infatuated with, kind of replaced, Brendan and Brian in that respect, and maybe Chris D'Elia and maybe a few others. So that same date that he was meant to do the show, the little Fight Companion on, looks like it's been taken over by Ari Shafir, Shane Gillis, and Mark Norman. Eddie Bravo's already there doing his own show, and so far there's been nothing to kind of give us an idea that this Fight Companion is going to come back again. So is this a case of Brendan? This is what I'm going to end it with. Is this the case of Brendan Schaub lying flat out about the Joe Rogan Companion show coming back with its original lineup, or did Brendan Schaub announce it too hastily? The word got back to Joe Rogan and he was like, nah, not doing that anymore. I don't want the hassle. I don't want the flipping cancellation attempts, because it's going to happen, right? Because of the crimes that were, levied against someone like Brian Callen and how he got cancelled, because of all the drama around Brendan Schaub and stuff, that if that show does go on, either something's going to occur where they're going to bring it up, the drama, or more likely than not, someone's going to try and re-cancel Brian Callen because he's on one of the biggest podcasts in the world, right? His exposure is going to be increased again. So maybe Joe Rogan just doesn't want that kind of smoke, or did Brendan lie? What do you guys think in the chat? I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you reckon? Did Brendan lie about the whole thing, or did Joe Rogan cancel it because Brendan opened his mouth too quickly and was, can't keep a secret? Let me know what you think in the chat. I'd love to know. What do you guys think in the chat? What do you guys think in the chat? Did Brendan lie in, or did Joe Rogan cancel it? Please tell me, because I don't know what's happening. I wonder if BJ will be serving drinks. Yeah, exactly. He probably will ask to be honest. He'll be so happy to. BGL and fucking Joe Rogan will be awful. He'll be high on coke and just be blabbering away trying to impress Joe Rogan with his superior intellect and his use of words. But yeah, what do you guys think? I think Papa jumped the gun, says Mr. Singh said it's cancelled. I agree with you. Okay, cool. So people are saying, so it's split here. People are saying cancelled or he jumped the gun. So it's a very split camp here in terms of Shane Jr. said Joe cancelled because Schaub was being too thirsty and ruined the vibes. It's like a desperate girlfriend. Exactly. That's probably true. Or when you agree to meet somebody and they just keep blowing up your phone. Maybe it's like that, yeah? Schaub says just didn't have fuck all else to think about. To talk about, sorry, that's it. Okay. Andrew W says it's an outright lie, is insane, but I wouldn't put it past him at this point. Yeah, it's true. That's the thing with Brendan. He lies so often that even an insane lie like this isn't something that's out of his realm. Because it's a dumb lie to make, because if it doesn't happen, we know you're lying. And also, you don't need to lie about it, because who fucking gives a shit? You know what I mean? And up as I said, Norman, Gillis, and Ari are much funnier than Callan Shaw. But anyways, yeah, for sure, I agree with that. Especially now, anyway, because unfortunately, with Brendan Schaub and Brian, in general, their entire show, like I said, I was an old school fan of The Fighter and the Kid. I loved it when it was back on the Fox days. And the reason why it was funny was because of their dynamic. The dynamic between Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen made the show funny. The fact that they were basically taking the piss out of each other, right? Kind of like an older brother, younger brother type thing. The moment Brendan became more successful on paper and started to believe his own hype and legitimately thought he was the next coming of fucking Joe Rogan or whatever he thought he was, that's the moment the show dipped, especially when Brian Callen's career started to dip also, or started to stagnate. And Brendan started to look at it, probably thinking, why is it so hard for him? It's so easy. All you have to do is just work really hard, go and do loads of sets, and then you can also get shot. I mean, he started to have that weird disdain for people who weren't successful for him because he kind of made it so quickly. And then that kind of built into his ego and it never recovered after that. And that was the whole thing as well when they did the Fight Companion. Their chemistry on T-Fat-K was basically exemplified on the Fight Companion. Plus you add in the element of Eddie Bravo being absolutely nuts and talking about his conspiracies and stuff and not being afraid to calling them out. And you had a really funny and interesting show. For the most part, like they were really legitimately funny. But nowadays, the fact that Brendan basically treats Brian like an employee, the fact that Brian's been devoid of any kind of funniness that he had prior, it's all completely gone because of what he's been accused of, whatever, or what he got accused of doing, blah, blah, blah. And Joe Rogan's just a completely different headspace. You know what I mean? He's completely gone. He's like, he's far, far gone past those kind of guys. And again, if you watch that recent appearance with Brendan on Joe Rogan, you could tell those guys don't speak as much as they did in the past. Maybe before I could believe if Brendan said, yeah, I text Joe or talk to Joe every day. But nowadays I don't believe that's true. Maybe he might DM him or like his stories and stuff, and that might be equivalent to talking, but how they used to communicate before is not the same whatsoever. For sure, Joe Rogan's either cut them off or distanced himself, especially since he's moved to flipping Texas. But yeah, that's the development on that thing. So let's see. They've got one more day to prove it wrong. If Brendan if he's able to go on there beforehand, then we'll know. But I think the alarm bells should have been ringing for Brendan in terms of him going on that show when this little interaction happened. Do you remember? I think someone featured this again on the Find the Kids subreddit. This little interaction happened, and you got the feeling that maybe word got back to Brian to tell Brendan to fucking shut the fuck up and stop blabbering. And here's him mentioning again that he's going to go on Joe Rogan.
Now you and I are gonna fly to Austin.
We're going to fly to Austin. I don't know if we're supposed to say that right now.
Oh, I mean,
I think he wants to keep that
really
a secret.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, you and I will fly to Austin.
Do something.
That's all I'm going to say. We're going to do something. Little tease.
See? So clearly word got back to somebody in the camp. Maybe Brendan's phone wasn't charged and he didn't know what was said, but clearly something was said. Things were, and then maybe the show got cancelled because he talked too much. But I doubt it. I think Joe actually does like those guys, and say what you want about Brendan and Brian. Joe is a really loyal guy. He does. Oh, sorry, the volume was high. Sorry, the volume. Okay, let me play again. Sorry. Let me play it again. Let me play it again.
Now you and I are gonna fly to Austin.
We're gonna fly to Austin. I don't know if we're supposed to say that right now.
Oh, I mean,
I think he wants to keep that.
Oh, really?
A secret.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, you and I will fly to Austin.
Do something.
That's all I'm gonna say. We're gonna do something. Little teaser.
So, like I was about to say what you want about Brendan and Brian. Joe is a really loyal dude. He does really go out of his way to help his friends, and I feel like he's not going to abandon them or leave them alone in that regard, never in a million years, or cut them off fully. So if he did promise them they were going to do a Fight Companion, I still think they're probably going to end up doing it. Maybe they might not do a Fight Companion. It might just be like a podcast with all four of them on, just shooting the shit. And then they might just release it after because Joe now doesn't live stream his shows anymore. He banks them anyway. So if he's got a trip coming up or he might be away or whatnot, he might just do loads of shows and pump them out as he's away and stuff. So that could be something they may do. So it may still happen. But it's just funny that he announced it so ahead of time, was so chuffed at himself that he was going to do it. And then now we've heard absolutely crickets from it. And then the last thing that we heard from it was Brian Callen basically telling him, hey, relax, don't basically expose the entire thing because what's he gonna call it? He doesn't like that kind of thing. Let's see if I can actually find the fight card. Is there a fight card this weekend? There is, right? UFC fight card. Let's see if there's one. Tapology. That's one. Let's see. I'm pretty sure there is a fight card this week. There is one, right? There has to be one. Let's go to Fight Center. Let me just put this up on the screen so you guys can see. So I'm not doing it on my own. Let's go to promotion. That's my favorite site to see all the fight cards. Go to UFC and let's see what's on. but because they're Wednesday, or maybe they're doing a one championship thing. I doubt it. Oh yeah, it's Paris, isn't it? Shit, Cyril Game versus fucking Tuivasa. Okay, so that's actually a big card. Wow. Okay. Cool. That's actually pretty cool. I actually totally forgot that it was the one in Paris. But yeah, that should be fucking awesome. Alrighty. That's a stacked card, I'm not going to lie. Cyril Game v Tuivasa, Robert Whittaker versus Vittori. I don't know who these. Did I watch the Cicero's fight before? I don't think I did I? I'm not sure I did. Nate Marquardt versus John Medeski. I don't know a lot of these other fighters in his card, to be honest. I know who Charles Jourdain is. He hasn't won a fight in a long time, Charles Jourdain, so that should be a good one. I'm mixing up with the other guy. I'm mixing up with the other guy that's a model. I think that's the one that's a model I'm mixing up with. Again, you can tell my casualness with what I'm saying here. Draken Buckley is always a fun fight to watch. So yeah, it's a very stacked card. Jesus Christ, my bad. Okay, cool. So let's see. It's a really stacked card. Hopefully it happens for his regard anyway when it comes to Brendan, because as much as I like to laugh at the guy, if he, you know how much he loves Joe Rogan. If this doesn't happen, it'll be really, really embarrassing. So hopefully it does occur. Hopefully it does occur. Cool, let's get this off the screen. Let's move on. Bear with me a second here. Next one. Oh, yes, what I'll talk about. So, this one I'll talk about here. Let me quickly take a sip of my drink and move on. Let's go back on. No, Shane, I'm not talking about Luke Rockhold. I'm talking about who's the other guy. There's another guy in the UFC who also used to do a lot of modeling. He's got dark hair, though. He's also like a really good looking dude. And I'm pretty sure he's Canadian as well. I forgot his name. It must be. Is it Charles Jourdain as well? I'm not too sure. I don't want to type it up and search it, but I'm sure some of you guys who are more knowledgeable on the UFC would know. He's a UFC fighter. He's got dark hair, and he also models. I think he did actual legit modeling. He was actually in fucking campaigns and shit. He was definitely did a runway a couple of times. But he's not the best. He's not the best fighter in the world. Do you know what I mean? He's not that good. Which is unfortunate, really, isn't it? But I guess that's God's way of kind of keeping everybody humble. That's his name, Alan Jouban. That's his way. That's his name, Alan Jouban. Thank God. Okay, cool. Yeah, Alan Jouban. Yeah, that's him. That's the guy I'm talking about. Yeah, so he's another kind of model guy. It's unfortunate that the model guys aren't that really good in it, right? I guess that's God's way of keeping you humble. Like they give you all the genetic you win a genetic lottery, you look amazing, face and body wise, but then you're just not good at the sport you pick. Because imagine if you were good at that sport. You know what I mean? You're drop dead gorgeous and you're good at the sport. The marketing dollars, the fucking sponsorships, the ad campaigns you'd get. Oh, so good. They'd be so plentiful, man. So plentiful. But, God needs to keep you humble. And they just, yeah. No, when it comes to Alan Jouban, that's very homo. Like, he's a very good looking man. You know what I mean? And if I swung that way, I'd definitely have a piece for sure. Alan Jouban is one sexy motherfucker. There is no homo involved there. That guy is cute AF. Cute AF. But yeah, let's move on. Let's go. So, next thing I wanted to talk about here, something that I think may be a little bit of a semi-controversial topic to talk about because I'm still not sure on it myself and where I kind of stand. But I was listening to the Bert Kreischer podcast, right? And it's something that I mentioned a few times on my channel that I'm not the biggest Bert Kreischer fan. I did start off being a fan of his, but then I kind of got put off by his antics and his general way he carries himself and how he talks and his laughs and the exaggerated stories and this alcoholic stick he has going on. It's just it's annoying, isn't it? Right? Picking his feet, the wearing of the sandals, the fact that his face goes all red, the kind of lying about being sober, running on a treadmill while drinking. Well, it's just the entire thing about Bert is a bit exhausting, but I do appreciate that he is actually funny. I do think he's one of the better stand-ups in that scene. I did actually enjoy his stand-up special. I think it was Secret Time. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really fucking funny. I do think he's someone, if you went to see live, you would think you didn't waste your money. He definitely make it worth every penny that you paid and make it a fun time. And I can understand why you're a fan of his, but I have to take him in small doses. But I think his podcast is really good also. I think he's underrated in his interviews. I really do think, especially when he's talking to other comedians and shooting the shit about the industry, they do it in a really fun and interesting way that I think everyone most people who aren't even involved in comedy could take something away from it. Cool. Safe. So he sat down with Tim Dillon, and he was speaking about going on tour and being on the road, right? And how much he is on the road in general. And if you watch any of his podcasts, you'll know that he does this little thing at the beginning where he'll kind of do promo kind of clips and stuff and ads, and you speak about his tour, and it's quite fucking crazy because when he speaks, you have like a Rolodex of his tour dates kind of running down the screen, and on this particular episode there was loads of dates just like rolling off like in all in the same month, like really close together. So he's constantly on the road. And I guess Tim basically asked him about all that type of stuff, and it kind of comes across that when he mentioned how often he's on the road, you kind of get the impression that maybe at home Bert isn't the greatest dad because he has to spend so much time on the road. But then it got me to thinking that maybe this is what all these guys actually want. They don't actually want a balanced family life. They don't actually want the ability to kind of call their own shots and make their own hours. Because I'd imagine, some people that get into that kind of industry, part of the reason why you want to get out of the rat race of working a corporate job or a regular 9 to 5 is because you don't want to be on someone else's time. You want to call your own, you want to make your own hours, you want to call your own shots and be the master of your own destiny in that way. But then you don't try and do the same workload that you were doing in a 9 to 5 when you're kind of working for yourself. You wouldn't want to do that much work unless you did enjoy it, regardless. But you get the feeling from Bert that he actively tries to do as much work as possible so that he can avoid being at home, which is pretty crazy. So this is Bert Kreischer kind of talking about it, and then we can kind of... So the first thing I want to quickly mention is that it's funny that he tried to do the whole like work ethic thing at the back of it and, hustling, da-da-da-da. But the key thing, the phrase to really pick out here, I think, is him saying, this is your dream. Which you don't hear a lot of people, especially people that are parents. You don't really hear parents say that kind of thing. I'm living my dream. Usually when you're a parent, you basically sacrifice your dream for the betterment of your children or your family, right? You put your dreams to one side, to kind of get your kids settled or to kind of get the family right. And then maybe you can pursue your dreams after the fact. But he's actively pursuing his dream at the same time that he's trying to raise a family, which is pretty gnarly. But it's also kind of a good way to kind of excuse yourself and to kind of not feel guilty that you're missing out on big parts of your family's life when you're just on the road all the time because you want to be. Because it's not like he has to do it to pay the bills, because I'm sure people like him included and other comedians over there, they could essentially make $1 million a year just from doing their podcast alone. I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys are that kind of level, from the sponsors they get, from the live shows they could do, from the merch they sell, from the money they make on AdSense, right? They're always in the hundreds of thousands. Like even this video here is already on 100,000 views, so they're already making a pretty decent amount off this view alone, or this video by itself. So it's not like they're going on the road for like money to pay bills. It's just like extra stuff, right? It's just like, why not do it because you can do it? So I wonder if these guys look at themselves in the mirror and think, am I a good dad or am I a bad dad? And does it actually matter anyway, in the grand scheme of things, especially if you're an LA person? Because I'd imagine everybody in LA has a bad dad to some extent, because it's an entire city where people go to make it, right? They go to chase their quote unquote dreams. So a lot of people are absent. A lot of people are absent-minded. A lot of people are selfish and selfless. So there's a lot of people kind of wrapped up into their own realities. And there's a lot of kind of main character people over there, like adults with actual main character syndrome in them, where they want to be the center of attention at all times. I wonder if that's the case. I'm not really too sure. But anyway, continue.
Doing right.
He's got on his face is really, really sad, isn't it? He's like an adult baby, isn't it? I think that's probably why I've never really resonated with Bert Kreischer too tough. Like, I've never been a fan of people who kind of infantilize themselves, especially when you're a grown adult. Like, they have this kind of effervescent childlike thing about them. I think you meet people like that a lot. Like, sometimes yogis like that, or people, especially when you go backpacking, you sometimes meet people like that, right? I remember when I went to backpack around Central America and South America for a bit, you'll bump into a lot of people like that in hostels that are really wide-eyed and kind of doughy smiled and just kind of really want to act like they always want to act naive and innocent to the world, and love will solve it. And they've got that kind of weird Lexi thing about them. Love will solve everything, conversations heal the world, all that sort of nonsense, right? And they kind of just live in they live in a reality that doesn't really exist. They're just perpetually stuck in this kind of weird continual high thing. I don't know what it is. I've never really vibed with it too much. But it is quite comforting. Again, I say all this to say that, but it is quite comforting, especially in the world of stand-up comedy, where everyone's trying to pretend to be the beast of a dad, Everyone's trying to pretend to be the best comic. Everyone's trying to have the best morals, the best principles, the best opinions of politics, all this sort of stuff. It's quite refreshing that Bert is essentially a adult baby, right? He's essentially an adult frat boy, right? He went to college for 7 years, for fuck's sake, right? And he doesn't pretend to be smart. He doesn't pretend to be educated on world issues. He doesn't even try and talk about those things. He just sticks to what he knows, making loads of jokes on podcasts, doing loads of stand-ups, drinking a bunch, taking off his t-shirt and make people laugh. That's what he does to a T. That's quite admirable in that respect. Do you know what I mean? It's quite nice that there's somebody out there that's just, I'm going to be myself. Like, forget trying to have a charade. This is who I am. Say what you want about me, but this is who I am. That's pretty neat. But it's also a little bit odd that there's a grown man who's getting this excited about dice and playing games and having treats and all this sort of shit. It's a bit like,
I had that too.
I wake up and bong.
so weird.
I love all of it.
Don't get me wrong. What he's saying about having a career like this is pretty fun, especially myself being a up and coming DJ and somebody that wants to pursue that in terms of a career in some way, shape, or form in the future. It is quite fun, that side of things, right? Going on tour, meeting new people, experiencing different places, going and playing different clubs in front of different audiences. All that stuff is fun, and everything that surrounds it: airports, hotels, good food, blah blah blah. But again, this man is nearly 50 years old. He has 2 kids who are in their teenage years and a wife and maybe a couple of dogs. I'm not really too sure. You would imagine the kind of novelty of like always being on the road and away from your family would wear off a little bit, where you'd want to kind of go home and, I don't know, look after your family. But he just doesn't. He refuses to be that person. But, you know, which again, like I'm saying, is it a good dad thing or is it a bad dad thing? I don't know.
Can I tell you, I never went to sleepaway camp. And I feel like the road for me is sleepaway camp.
You see another instance of like Bert trying to what's that word called? Bert trying to relive his childhood that he never had. Because that's why I said adult frat boy is a good example of it, because he probably never got to enjoy high school or college as much as he probably liked to, because, you know, after a certain period of time, being a guy who's in college for 7 years, you're not really, you know, you're not looked at as cool anymore. People kind of look at you like a bit of a sympathy case or whatever, right? They're kind of looking like with regret, like, oh man, I don't want to be that guy. So you don't really have the best of times. So then you want to recreate that feeling of being in college when you're an adult and you have money. And he's doing the same thing here because he never went to sleepaway camp. He's trying to recreate sleepaway camp in his late 40s. Honestly, I don't know, man. It's just disparate of how these comedians look down upon us. I don't know what it is about these guys, how they look down on their own audience. I really don't get it, man. They absolutely despise the regular working class person who just works a crappy job, you know, that pays for their lifestyle, enjoys it to some extent, goes home to their wife, hangs out, has a laugh, hangs out with their kids, goes to sleep and does it again the next day. They literally look down upon it like as if that is essentially their version of purgatory. That's essentially their version of working in a slave camp or being in a gulag. Do you know what I mean? That kind of life. I don't understand it. I really don't get it. I don't get it in the slightest. I really don't get it. Oh, but big up, Jess. Take care, my love. Be safe and stuff. Thank you for tuning in and joining in. I do appreciate you as per usual. But yeah, I really don't get it. I don't get why they're so disdainful of their own audience and why they have this kind of attitude towards people who essentially pay for their lifestyle, because that's what he's saying in a roundabout way, right? When he goes home to Leanne, his wife, and basically looks at her and thinks, oh, this is just a basic bitch existence, even though they are in the 1.1%, you know, percentile in terms of earning potential and what they're able to do. It's pretty weird in my opinion. But again, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Anyway, skip ahead a little bit. And there's another quote here that I thought was really interesting to kind of pull apart, which is again around 110 mark. Let's pause, but you get the gist of it. Now, I wonder what you guys are in the chat. So basically, he's basically saying that he never really gave his daughters a chance to be normal people. He never gave them the chance to have normal childhood because he made them a part of his comedy, and you know he's got some really funny bits and jokes about them anyway in general. And they've always kind of been a part of his life, and you know how he records himself and does live streams and whatnot. So, but they never had a choice if they wanted to be celebrities or well known or whatnot. And now they're at a stage in their life where they're growing into being young women, where they kind of want a bit of anonymity. They want a bit of what's that thing called? Anonymity and what's that word called? autonomy on their life, right? They want to be able to call the shots on what they do, and they don't want strangers coming up to them, shouting bits or saying whatever nonsense they say on podcasts and whatnot. But Bert also does enjoy using his family as part of his comedy because it makes him somewhat, I think, relatable. Because he's not really relatable, is it? Because he comes from a pretty rich family, he makes a ton of cash, and he lives in one of the best places in the world. You know what I mean? So he's not the most relatable person. So if you want to be relatable, the only way to do it is to obviously include your family, right? Talk about stuff that everyone can kind of resonate with, regardless of how much you pay in taxes. Everyone can kind of resonate with having an annoying wife, of having kids that maybe don't listen to you and shit. So they're a big part of his comedy, a huge part. The same that goes with his drinking and shit. Probably the why he doesn't want to drink. So it must be a weird place to be in. It really must be a weird place to be in. But like I said beforehand, I think in general that he does over egg and overplay the whole alcoholic thing. I don't think he's as alcoholic as he makes it seem as he is. I think it's part of a shtick, and so far it's worked really well for him. But then again, I do think, just as an outside observer, if that was me and I had the lifestyle that he had, where you could essentially make your own hours and call your own shots, I would maybe want to spend more time with my family. I wouldn't really want to be on road all the time to kind of escape them. And if I did want to escape them to that extent, I'll just be a bachelor. But I guess some of these comedians they want everything, innit? They want to have someone look after them, like a wife or a family member. They also want to have the ability to say they have children and kind of show that they're somewhat of a good person. But then they also don't want to be like active, fathers in their kids' lives and shit. They're always on the road. It's really interesting how they do it. It's really, really funny, just to be honest. They kind of LARP as like everyday people, regular average Joe, but in theory, they're not really, innit? And they get afforded the luxuries that people don't usually get afforded because they bring in the cash and they keep the roof over everyone's head. So that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, moving on. This is a minor clip to talk about, something that I think a lot of you guys probably won't care about in general. But I know some of you have heard me talk about Dark Side Phil on here a lot of times, right? He is the much derided and much kind of mocked lolcow on the internet, whose basically whole thing is getting online and basically begging his audience for tips in order for him to pay his bills, like essential bills, like rent, for him to get groceries, for him to take his wife out for dinner, for him to get a haircut. Like, he essentially begs and pleads his audience to give him money to basically keep him alive. And over the years, due to people paying more attention to what he does, we've kind of come to the conclusion, or realized through different means, that he essentially lies about a lot of the stuff that he asks for, or where the money goes, or how much he makes. And he essentially hoodwinks the entire fans that he has because, he can, and because they're fans of him, because they don't see he does anything wrong. And they essentially reward his bad behavior by giving him loads of money and tips and whatnot. So in general, he is a pretty reprehensible character, I think, on the internet. And I'm a bit conflicted when it comes to Dark Side Phil, because I tend to not try to watch too many things that annoy me, because in general that probably isn't the best way to go about living in life and shit, especially things that annoy me to my core in terms of my principles and how my morals and how I view life and whatnot. And Phil represents everything that I kind of don't stand for, in terms of like asking people for help, in terms of not taking responsibility, in terms of lack of accountability, in terms of not honoring your word, like loads of things that I just wouldn't ever kind of see myself doing. Phil does a lot for himself a lot of times, right? Something he does quite often. And it's very strange, it's very annoying. But there's also a part of me that sits there and think, a lot of the reason why he does what he does is because he's never really had any real life consequences happen in terms of his life. He just kind of gets away with what he gets away with. Some people could say, he's not really gotten away with anything. But for the most part, his quality of life has never really been disrupted by his inability to kind of not make any money for himself or for his family, right? Without a job, he has to kind of beg and plead for tips and shit. So that's a bit weird and annoying to see. So there's a part of me that also sits there and think, is it okay to wish ill will on someone like that and to hope that they somehow lose everything so that they can learn a lesson? Is that okay because they're a reprehensible person? Or is that what people are fighting against when it comes to cancel culture? That the fact that you can go out there and say, hey, this person, I don't like what they do, so I want them to lose their ability to make an income, when really they're not doing anything criminal. For the most part, maybe you could argue that he did remember something criminal because he lied in these tax returns. I'm not really too sure. But in general, is what Phil's doing, does it give anyone a reason enough to basically wish him ill will, wish him not to be able to look after himself, wish him to get all these channels deleted and demonetized and blah, blah, blah. Is that enough? I'm not really too sure. But anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because there's this channel on YouTube now that's just started. It's like a new radio show type thing. It feels like it's like another version of like what those guys called something Revenge of the Sis. It feels like a Revenge of the Sis type show, but they called Steel Toe Morning Show. And this guy had an interesting kind of interesting perspective on the whole DSP thing and how people were trying to cancel him and get him copyright strikes and get him taken off YouTube. And he essentially said he didn't really like it and he thought it was lame. And he basically was, in a weird way, kind of defending DSP's right to be a piece of shit and still be able to make money on the internet. So this is his reasoning behind it. I'm going to play it. It's a short clip. I'm not going to play the entire 27-minute thing, but you can check out yourself if you want to. That's the title of the video. Let's play it and hear what these guys have to say about Dark Side Phil.
Let's go ahead and check in on our buddy Dark Side Phil. You know, I haven't heard from Phil since I got back from vacation. DSP has, it looks like he's survived the cancellation attack.
Well, what are they going to cancel him for?
Right, exactly. Well, here's the problem. I got in a lot of shit with that detractor community. About 60% of it thought, yeah, you're right. Don't cancel Phil. Don't go in there trying to do cancel culture bully bullshit against a guy just because he's fucking terrible and he harangues his audience and he, bothers people and annoys people. Just don't.
Isn't that enough reason to want to cancel somebody? Just because all of those things, just because he, might have raped and pillaged an entire village, just because he runs over old women for fun, just because he might touch up kids, doesn't mean he should have the ability to look after his family. It's like, come on. The guy's done enough on the internet already to not have any ability to monetize his content on YouTube anyway, especially when it comes to terms of service, the words that he's used, the things that he said, how he attacks his audience, loads of things. But he's been able to get away with it because in general, no one really cares because it's only Dark Side Phil. But to sit there and suggest that he's done nothing that should... The thing is, the impression I get is that he's surprised that people would want to cancel him. And that's what I don't get. It's like, why should you surprise that one of the most unlikable people on the planet, right? Or on social media, in content generation, would also have people out there who actively want him to disappear and go away forever. That should be normal. Like, if you're that unlikable, you're going to have people out there who don't like anything that you do. That includes anything that you do and want to wish ill will on you to the end of time. So I don't know why he's so surprised by it. Anyway, let's continue.
Don't watch him then. Don't watch. I want to watch him because it's fucking hilarious. I watch Snort Hogan. I watch Snort Burnell. I watch Duty Streams. I watch all these channels that find great clips.
Or you can watch him live and literally giggle.
This is what I don't understand. Sorry to keep interrupting. He's saying if you don't like it, don't watch it. But then he watches all the detractor content and his entire show is basically based upon watching stuff he doesn't like and picking it apart. So it doesn't make, anyway, whatever. It's
like a schoolgirl every time he has to fight somebody online and they beat him and he blames his internet connection.
But so they tried to cancel him recently by copyright striking his videos, and it's fucking dishonest. It's total bullshit. And you guys can yell at me and say I'm problematic and whatever. Damn right I'm problematic. You must not know about me. So
how do you think?
We don't know about you. You're not problematic. You're just a fucking dweeb. That's what you are. You're just a dweeb. He's trying way too hard to be a contrarian, trying way too hard to ride the fence as well, not really saying anything of any sort of value of importance. Because I think it's far better to just probably not have two positions on it, but it's either you think DSP is a piece of shit, you don't necessarily care, or you can see both sides. But he's not even doing that. He's trying to annoy one side while also saying he's your friend, while also not saying anything. It's a very confusing way to kind of put information out there. Either you stand on the DSP should be allowed to be a piece of shit thing, because he's doing what Wings does. Wings does the same thing when he defends DSP. He'll say all this bad stuff about Wings, about DSP, sorry, about his addiction being his addiction to gambling, about how he spends too much money, about all these horrible things you'll say about DSP, but he'll go out of his way to say that he enjoys his content and is really entertaining and whatnot. And I watched it. It's like pick a lane, pick a side, pick a lane, or just shut the fuck up. Like, no one wants to hear your middle of the road arguments.
I think we ended up here.
How do you think I got here? So this DSP thing, people were saying, "Oh, he's a piece of shit. I hate Phil," and I would write back the same thing to him. I'm not saying he's not a piece of shit. I'm not saying he doesn't suck. I'm saying he shouldn't be canceled for it. You guys shouldn't be reporting him. That's total gay ops bullshit. And nope, they couldn't be swayed from it. No, you just don't understand the shit he did 9 years ago. Then make it about the shit he did 9 years ago. Don't make it some bullshit copyright strike just because the ends justify the means. That's dishonest, it's scummy, and it's gross pussy shit. Don't do that.
The nerve to call anybody a pussy when you're not saying anything at all is absolutely baffling to me. Absolutely baffling. How could you call anyone a pussy when you're not saying anything? He's not saying a thing. Okay, don't copyright strike Phil. Let him what? He's not even saying let him implode by himself. He's just saying don't copyright Phil. That's dishonest. Let him be around so that you can take the piss out of him so you can get your views up on your channel. It's like, what? What does this even mean? Anyway, that's as much as I'm going to go on it because I can't be bothered. I think this guy talks out of his ass anyway. I'm not going to pick it apart too much. But it's just an interesting alternative point of view on it. Me personally, again, being somebody that really dislikes DSP, and it's the only person on the internet I actually legitimately dislike, it's an interesting conundrum to have because he's so unlikable and he does so many horrible things and he takes advantage of his audience for the most part. But in the other side of it, for me, I've never really been a fan of cancel culture at all. I've always been under the assumption that your fans should cancel you. So if your fans think you're a reprehensible person, or if you've done something that your fans can never forgive and they don't want to support you anymore, and then you have to go and get a normal job, then that's fine. But I'm not a fan of like the platforms or organizations or corporations deciding you can have a career, you can't have a career. It should always be up to the fans. If the fans don't fuck with you, cool. Or if the fans move on, or if the dent heads, as they refer to DSP's fans, finally have an awakening and think, oh, we're sending more money. He's blowing it all away. He's spending on WWE champions and gin and fucking DoorDash and whatnot. We're not going to support him anymore. That's fine. But you should probably not be pushing platforms like YouTube to try and take him off because you just don't like him. Maybe that's a thing to kind of think about. But in general, he deserves it all, in my opinion. I think when you're that horrible of a person, if you get people trying to copyright strike you, if you get people trying to take you down and have a raise, it's just part of the parcel of being who you are. You can't sit there and start whining and pretending that you're a good person. Good people don't get that stuff happening to them all the time. I don't think so personally. So the fact that he's a representative person, you're going to get that shit happening to you. It's what it is, nature of the game. But I think these guys trying to defend DSP or down the DSP here is really pathetic. But everyone's got to do what they got to do when it comes to content, innit, to get their name out there. So I can't hate on it too much. Let's continue. Next on list I want to talk about here quickly. This is quite funny. This is really, really funny. I like this. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but someone shared a clip of Brendan Schaub and Eric Griffin. For whatever reason, I guess because Eric Griffin is a UFC casual or an MMA casual, doesn't really know much about the sport in general, but it seems like Brendan has picked Eric Griffin to be his main co-host when it comes to doing all those flashback fight things, right? I don't know what it's on his channel where he basically will go over an old fight, or he'll go over something interesting that happened in UFC history back in the day, and they'll talk about it on the show. And I guess because Griffin was quite stern and quite kind of blunt in his assessment of Brendan's skills last time, and maybe it got a lot of views. I don't know. Something happened where they've now decided Eric Griffin's the main guy, which is funny too, because I made a video prior where I was saying that how it felt like the guys were basically leaving Eric Griffin out of the cool guy club because he wasn't as cool as, Theo Vaughn and Chris D'Elia. But then because Theo Vaughn's gone MIA and essentially is too scared to basically say he wants to quit, and Chris D'Elia's a shell of the human being he used to be, Brendan needs to kind of get somebody else in there to kind of pump up the views when it comes to King of the Sting and everything. So it's funny that now Eric Griffin's back in the circle of trust. So that video that I made about Eric Griffin maybe not being part of T5K for the long run, it always gets comments where people say, oh, it aged terribly. But I like to think in my overinflated ego that I maybe played a part in him being welcomed back into the group. So Eric Griffin, you're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. But anyway, Brendan kind of talks about the interaction that he had with Nate Diaz back in the day. Remember backstage, right, during a UFC card. I think this was just after Conor McGregor had fought on Mayweather, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And Brendan had an interaction with Nate Diaz that didn't go too well. And I guess they're looking at that now on this show with Eric Griffin. But for some reason, as per usual, Brendan basically misremembers the entire exchange, or purposely lies about how it went down to make himself look good. It's really interesting. And we're going to actually go over the video of what actually happened, how it happened. And we're also going to go over what Brendan said at the time when he went on JRE, because he was very kind of apologetic when he was on JRE, but now he's trying to basically talk like Billy Badass about the entire thing. It's really funny. So this is Brendan Schaub talking about his interaction with Nate Diaz back in the day.
You're 100% correct. But also, and then fans are like, oh, the reason why Schaub might be a little salty towards Nate is because we had an issue when I worked for Showtime. My job was to sell the fans and the boxing fans on why Conor McGregor might have a chance to beat Floyd Mayweather.
Wrong. I remember this correctly and clearly, because I reckon this is the time where I started to really, really dislike Brendan, and I started to really not be a fan of the show anymore in terms of the fighting a kid. If I remember correctly, Brendan Schaub was twerking super, super hard to get the Showtime gig, because I guess he might have heard maybe through the flipping back channels of agents and whatnot that Showtime were maybe looking at him to be one of the hosts, and he was twerking really hard to get that gig. And to be fair to him too, he did a really good job in terms of hyping up the possibility of Conor McGregor beating Mayweather in the boxing fight. He was hyping it. This is before he signed any contract deal, anything. He was already hyping the thing of like, Conor McGregor's going to beat Floyd Mayweather. He's going to pose a lot of issues with him. He's talking about that fucking stance. He's going to come in weird angles. All that nonsense he was talking about, right? This is before he'd signed any paper. And he was definitely saying it not as a bit to kind of get people to get on board and watch the fight. He was saying it because he genuinely believed it, because this was also the time when Conor McGregor was hotter than fucking grease. He was the main man. People thought, he could do no wrong. He was basically sparking everybody. So I think, it's the same thing like how fucking Joe was obsessed with Ronda Rousey and basically said he could beat up any man in the world or some nonsense like that, right? Where people were a little bit delusional of fucking Conor McGregor's skill set. That's why he was saying that. So don't believe him when he tries to spin it now and say, oh, I was doing it because I was employed to drum up the... No. You believed it. You were twerking for Showtime. It worked. You got the gig, but you definitely believed Conor McGregor was going to beat Floyd Mayweather.
I got paid to convince people.
Yeah.
Tough gig, dude.
Lies.
The odds were not on my side, but that was my paid gig to do that. So I'm coming up with every kind of explanation why things do it. So I, went on the tour, went to the fight. I was the Conor McGregor expert. Well, Nate,
hype bum boy. Because you remember what did he say before? You say, I'm on a Conor McGregor hype train. I don't know whether he was unapologetically a huge Conor fan. So that's why he was hyping Conor up to win the fight. Let's not deny that.
Nate Diaz, because they have their issues, viewed me as Team Conor. So when we go to and I'm just filling in why people think I'm salty. So after that fight, I'm walking through. It's all boxing fans, and they're talking shit to me, like, whatever. I see Nate. Now, we're part of a alumni, man. Like, I was on Ultimate Fighter. I was a top 10 UFC heavyweight. There's no other UFC representatives there. So
there is no alumni. What we know so far about Brendan, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Again, I didn't watch the UFC when he was in it. I only started watching UFC a bit after he basically retired, right? But for whatever reason, Brendan has never really been liked. I don't know what it is about Brendan. Maybe it's because of the whole Reebok deal with Dana. Maybe that kind of put him at odds with the UFC in general. And maybe that kind of seeped through with some of the fighters on the roster because they didn't want to be seen to be Brendan's friend, because that maybe could work against them. But in general, I've never got and again, it's something I've always really been odd at. It's really strange, I think, if you're a Brendan, to even assess yourself. He was a pretty well-known fighter. He was a top 15, top 20, whatever you want to say, but he was of a decent standard. He fought some really good standard fighters. He was friends with Joe Rogan. He was on Joe Rogan podcast a lot of the time. And he was also on the UFC when the UFC was, relatively still new. Or not even new, but relatively still recent. It wasn't like he was fighting, along like in the 90s or something or whatever, maybe in the early 2000s. He was fighting at a time where people would generally still remember. But for whatever reason, he doesn't have the same level of love from the fans or from the industry at large. Like, people just don't respect or like him in the slightest, which is really bizarre, I think, with someone of his caliber or someone of his profile. It's really, really strange.
I see a familiar face. It'd be like if you go to a party and it's all actors and you see the comic from the store or somebody you've been around, you'd be like, oh, thank God, there's one of me. I have actually somebody to talk to. So I see Nate, I go, oh, thank God, there's a guy part of my crew. So I go, what's up, Ryan? And he goes, nah, man, I fucking told you. I'm like, I look around, I'm like, what are you talking about? Told me. And he's like, you don't know box. I'm like, whoa, dude, this was a gig, bro. He's like, nah, I thought you don't know fucking about it. And then I was like, dude, calm down. What are you talking about? And then I get defensive because there's a fighter. Of course. So I go, hold up. I said he was going to land punches. He landed punches, bro. Yeah. And that just set him off. And then he wanted to square up. Wow. And I'm like, okay. And then my Showtime boss was like, you touch him, you're going to lose all the jobs, dude.
Okay. This guy is so bizarre in the way that he explained things. And again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Blockbuster, whatever it may be. Brendan's fucking huge. He's a heavyweight, a legit heavyweight. Nate Diaz is not a heavyweight. If he wanted to just get on top of him and squeeze his lights out, he probably could. We're not denying that. We think that is true. But to now pretend as if like you were actually ready to scrap the guy is not true, because we've seen the video with subtitles. We heard everything that happened in that exchange. So this idea that this mythical Showtime person told him not touch him, and it's just he lies with such proficiency and with such so often that I think he genuinely believes what he says. I think he does genuinely believe what he says. I honestly do.
We cannot have that. And I was like, yeah, of course we can't. So then, the internet gets a hold of it and they, manufacture it. Like I was talking shit to him. There's no shit talking. With that being said, like to me, it's like, I get it. There's animosity because he thinks I'm Conor's team. I like Nate Diaz. I don't give a fuck about any of that.
He doesn't like you. I love how he does this all the time. I like Nate. I love Dana. They don't like you, mate. They don't like you. They never will. Stop trying to breed and be their friends now. And the funny thing as well with Nate Diaz, he was, if I'm not mistaken, was he ever champion? Or was he champion? Did he have one run at champion? I'm not really too sure. But Nate Diaz has had a very up and down career himself, but he's still way more beloved and way more respected and adored than Brendan will ever be. And I guess even now, within his, as he's winding down his career, it probably must hurt to see Nate get all this love and he doesn't. And he's still trying to pally up with these guys. It's fucking bizarre.
You and Nate Diaz?
Absolutely not. I don't want to fight that savage. Absolutely not, dude.
Yeah, with your cushy ass life. Now.
Yeah, hell no. Hell no.
Okay, so let's actually watch the video and see what actually happened and actually what actually occurred. I also find it funny. I think someone mentioned in the chat that Brenda's now trying to pretend he's fucking Eric Griffin's best friend, given how they treated Eric beforehand when Chris was first coming back on the King of the Skid thing. Also, given how Eric didn't really like Brendan to begin with because he thought that he was another person who wasn't a comedian coming in and infringing on his scene in terms of comedy. Given how Eric must know that Brendan sucks at comedy and has no business being in that industry himself. It's just an interesting thing. Like you couldn't get a more faker friendship if you tried. This is like a fake friendship but it's not fake. Maybe it's a convenient thing because they're grown ups and they need to make money and they're making content and they're being professional. But it's just funny to see them both trying to pretend that they're actual friends. It's like, you're not friends. So let's watch the actual video of what happened, right? This is courtesy of YouTube. And it's called as follows there. See the title, Nate Diaz and Brendan Shaw, full backstage altercation, new footage. So let's actually watch what actually occurred and we can actually compare that to what fucking Brendan had to say of what went down or what occurred in his head or how he remembers it. Because there's definitely some discrepancies in there and we're going to see it in real time.
Fucking ass, remember your career? Fuck you.
Too right, Nate.
You see? So let's go. Hold on. Is that the start? Is that the start? That's okay. That's the thing. So I think that's the kind of the start interaction, right? So you get this. Hold on. This is the start, right? You get this. The start is this. Nate, Mayweather didn't even try. So he didn't even try and he still absolutely demolished your boy, Conor McGregor, who obviously Nate doesn't like also. Brendan, I disagree. Floyd didn't even try. Are you sure? Conor, he didn't win 4 rounds. That was a whole shtick everyone was going with. Conor won 4 rounds. Conor won 4 rounds. Conor got those rounds that Mayweather didn't even try. That wasn't even trying. So Nate is definitely kind of, pushing the knife in there, twisting it a little bit. And who's the Showtime guy? You can obviously, to be fair to Brendan, he does look pissed off. He is doing that kind of cocky, kind of leaning in head thing. He is clearly annoyed and kind of riled up a little bit. I don't see the Showtime guy whispering to Brendan, if you touch him, you're going to lose your gig. I don't see that happening. Maybe that's a Showtime guy. I'm not really too sure the Showtime guy. So that is a definite lie. But let's continue. It's all good. What's that? So what did he say? It's all good. What? He touched him as well. He said what? It's all good. It's just your lack of knowledge, though. So he's clearly trying to antagonize him. This is a funny. I've not actually seen this entire thing. Let's actually put the thing there so it's a bit more, so it runs without stuttering too much. So he's clearly trying to antagonize Brendan a little bit, right? He is trying to antagonize Brendan. So let's kind of zoom in a little bit and get us on the screen a little bit here. This is definitely him trying to, poke the bear, get him to react a little bit. I can definitely see that. Put that over here. But yes, but I didn't see it.
It was at this moment.
He teed off on you, right? So obviously he's trying to get at him. Okay, Nate hears that and what?
That he knew. He fucked up.
Fuck you. See? So he stands right in front of him with a middle finger. Fuck you. Nate, I have no problem with you. A bitch.
Fucking ass beat. Remember your career?
As he's still next to Brendan, definitely heard that. Remember your career. So basically saying your career was fucking awful. Pussy.
Too right, Nate.
Now, does that sound like anything Brendan said in terms of the story? Does it sound like anything he said? Of course not. Just, I've said it many times on here, man. I don't really understand that guy. I don't get the lies. I really don't get the lies. I don't get the consistent nature of the lies. I don't get the lies, especially when they could be easily proven to be lies. I just don't understand it. But it just must be him just being a pathological liar. That is it. It's simple as that. The man's a pathological liar. He doesn't care how much he lies as long as it makes him look good. That's basically it. But it's such a weird thing to kind of lie about and then try and pretend that you're still cool with Nate and we're still cool and we're funny. But yeah, I don't get it. One good thing I think is good. No, one good thing I think is good. One good thing I think Brendan is doing is this announcement that was someone posted again on the Fire and the Kids subreddit, which is this. I think this is actually a good announcement, so I'm actually going to give the guy credit. I think this is a really good idea, and I think he should have done this a long time ago. So this is Brendan Schaub talking about starting another YouTube channel.
Oh,
There you go.
and tomorrow we launch the new YouTube channel. It's just Brendan Schaub comedy, all YouTube.
Ooh.
You get weekly clips, stand-up clips, funniest moments from podcasting. It's a whole new YouTube channel that's Brendan Schaub on YouTube.
Well,
comedy channel.
I'm going to be.
Which is a pretty decent, that meme is amazing. But I think it's a pretty decent idea. I think he should have done this a long time ago. And I think the good thing about it would be, hopefully, if you're a fan of Brendan Schaub, is that when he has his own comedy channel, where he'll be able to put his clips up and little, nuggets from stand-up and whatnot and whatever it may be, it could be an option for him to get some real-life feedback in terms of what people actually respond to and what they like or don't like. And maybe he can fine-tune the material to be a bit more funny. Maybe. Who knows? Or to get funnier or something. This is just me grasping at straws, but this could be an actual good thing going forward. So people can actually see what he does. He can actually use it as a marketing tool, use it as a revenue stream, also to kind of make more money off the back of it. Because if the comedy is shit, people are going to want to laugh at it and poke holes at it anyway. So why not give them the material and make money off the back of it too? If you're going to give YouTubers, ammo to kind of take the piss out of you, why not make it yourself, put it up on YouTube, and if they try and watch it themselves on their channel, you can just copyright strike them and shit. Do you know what I mean? So that's quite a good idea in terms of all that sort of stuff. And hopefully, like I said before, maybe all the responses and downvotes and comments he might get on his special, people actually, or on these comedy bits, people in his team might tell him, hey, maybe improve this and improve that. So let's see what happens. But it's definitely going to serve as a lot of material for a lot of the homeless cats out there in terms of the things that they watch to kind of get off on laughing at him and whatnot. What else we'll talk about? I think that might be it. I think, yeah, let's lastly end this on this. This is an update courtesy of the Fire and the Kids subreddit again regarding the update concerning Unique's lawsuit with Brendan Schaub, which is still going on, which is absolutely insane to think this is still happening, right? You would have thought Brendan, especially after all the bad press he got off the back of the Annie Liederman thing, the stuff concerning Kalila, just all the thing going on with Chris D'Elia, everything going on around his name, he would have maybe just, drop this lawsuit and just continue on, because you don't really need this unnecessary attention, but I guess it's still going through. So somebody provided a little summary of what's happening so far in terms of the lawsuit with Brendan or Thick Boy and Uniques, right, on YouTube. So it says as follows. If anyone likes a shit show, here's what's happened since Thick Boy Productions filed this lawsuit against Uniques. So far, we have as follows. Unique files a series of redacted, handwritten answers that keep getting tossed out by the court for failing to follow the rules. The judge tries to resolve the case soon, realizes everyone involved is a moron. By some miracle, Unique files a valid answer mentioning Schaub's monster lawyers and friends in dark places. Schaub's lawyer sends Unique a list of facts to confirm or deny. Instead of doing that, he goes on a live stream and basically calls his liars effing lying, slur there. The lawyers file a partial summary judgment since not answering the facts is treated as an admission. They mention Unique's anti-Semitic tirade on the filing. So it appears Uniques may lose the case soon. So Uniques might actually end up losing this, right? Take care, Proven 187. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Have a good one. Says he might lose this case. He may lose the case soon, and that Figma Productions is paying somebody, probably BGL, to monitor Unique's online activity. Schaub will end up paying $250,000 to win this case. Get nothing out of it other than blocking Unique's old YouTube channel, and the redacted POS already has another channel up obsessively mocking Schaub. In the end, everybody who's redacted is a loser. So basically, everyone loses. I didn't know that actually. So he's going to pay $250,000 to win this case. He's not going to get anything out of it because Unique is not, I don't think we'll have any money to give him anyway. And whatever content that was out there anyway is already out there. And plus, Ulysses has got a new channel anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. And that's a court filing as well. We can check out there if we want to in terms of the entire thing. It's like an official document in the fucking PDF you have to work through. Oh, who's this on? It's a Thick Boy Productions Inc. versus Swindeles. How do you say that? Swindles. Is it Swindles? Absolutely crazy. So what's the latest update so far we have here? August 22nd. August 29th is the latest update we have. But yeah, so no conclusion so far. They're still going at it. It's still fucking bullshit. Still fucking nonsense. No one's going to end up winning on the fucking end of this in general. And it's all going to be an absolute shit show in the end. And everyone's fucking address details are on there too. I'm not going to dox anybody, but yeah, let's move on. But anyway, yeah. So, that's the end, I think, of the Random Show episode number 45. Just a quick one. Just wanted to update you guys on those things. Nothing else to talk about, really. It's a little bit dead in the whole comedy front. I might have to watch a couple of specials. I also got to update my Patreon, innit? I also got to update my Patreon. Oh, Shane Jr., I'm doing my next DJ mix. I've got it already up on there, actually. I've got it listed. I've got, what am I doing it? I'm doing it on Saturday, right? I think it's Saturday night. I think I've got it on my channel. I think it's coming up. I'm pretty sure I've got it on my channel. It's Test Mix 62, I'm pretty sure. I've got it coming up. It's 62. It should be on Saturday. So if you haven't checked out my mix that I do already since I'm doing live on YouTube, definitely check that out. So it should be happening on Saturday. But I'll update the Patreon and update my community tab so you'll know when it's happening anyway. So don't worry about that one. But yeah, it's been fun to hang out with you guys. Hopefully you guys had a good time and stuff. I'm not on Twitch, unfortunately, Crash. I don't really post on Twitch too tough, but that is it. If you want to check me out on any other platform, feel free. No, Musa in here, sorry. What's happening with me? I've also got my podcast coming as well, so that'll be out soon, so you'll be able to check that on this channel. I've got the clips of that happening too. Subscribe and all that larky. And of course, just, keep connecting with the kid if you want to. And of course, keep making sure you're joining the Discord. It's a good community over there. So if you haven't joined in already,